right, great. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for part 4 of our Take Action series. And today we're going to be talking about what a multi-store system is versus an enterprise level platform, why the distinction matters, what those differences mean for you as a multi-store operator. It looks like many of you are, from what I see on the poll. And also some actionable ways that you can be identifying. Are you on a platform or a system? I see there were some responses where some of you are actually evaluating if changing platforms might be, the right choice for you. And so it's my pleasure to introduce really the stars of the show, Tally Mack, our CEO at Bravo, and we also have Steve Mack, the founder and chairman of Bravo, who's joining us today as well. And so both of them will be getting into the guts of all of this. Throughout our conversation, we want to make sure as well we're getting your questions answered, right? So jump in with any sort of questions that you may have. You can put those in the chat in the Q&A. And we'll also be sending a recording of this webinar as well. And so don't feel like you have to be, feverishly taking notes or anything like that. We'll send you this recording. And you'll have all of that information in your inbox. So without further ado, Tally, why don't I have you jump in, and let's start with kind of like why this distinction matters, and then move into some of the working definitions of a system versus a platform, and what are the advantages and the limitations.
Awesome. So when we think about multi-store versus enterprise, it's easiest to start thinking about buildings and construction and homes and the way that skyscrapers are built. And so there's a really big difference in the way, from a baseline, the way that the software is engineered and architected. It's no surprise that technology and software stole those terms from actual engineering and actual architecture, because really it starts before the construction ever begins. It starts before a single code, a line of code has ever been written. And so whether you have 2 stores or 20, the word enterprise and enterprise platform still applies to you, because it's really the forethought that went into building the product, opposed to building a product as a single store and then being able to connect those stores. So there's something really integral that happens when you're building technology, similar to when you're building a house, when you're trying to foresee all of the different uses and ways that that software may be able to be used. We particularly, for Bravo, we built this from the ground up, being a multi-store product. We're the only platform that's been able to do this successfully, and that is build a cloud-based software past 1,000 stores. That includes, technology by Easy and First Cash. So we're the only people that have been able to do this successfully. And that's because the amount of time and effort and experience that we have in engineering and architecting before we ever even started on the code. So that's a little bit of the what, and we're going to dig more into that. But before we do, let's talk about some of these pictures. We're going to do a poll here. What do you think, and this is just for fun, just to kick things off, what do you think is the biggest engineering fail? 1, 2, or 3? My personal is the stairway to nowhere. But as Kathleen and I were talking through multi-store and enterprise, and really trying to help capture how essential the framework is for building the technology, these sort of images really show that you can have like the best intention, but without a plan and a lot of forethought in how you're going to execute it, you end up with things that look like this. So it looks like stairs to nowhere won on the poll. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual nuts and bolts of a multi-store system. And I'm going to flip it over to Steve to do that.
Yeah, so when we were thinking about this endeavor originally, this really kind of goes back to our original system design when the PC first came out, and single servers were essential in having databases in each one of the locations. Each one of those servers had to be identical physically, and the software had to be identical. That was a really tough effort, because any of those variables that might change could offset the functionality of the software and the hardware. And in those days, when all these servers didn't talk to one another, the DOS, which was the original operating systems, there were what we call floppy disks that we would take each of those locations and update those every time there was a single line of code change, because all of that software had to be identical in each one of those stores in order for that data ever to be repurposed. The network started to be invented back in the late 80s and early 90s, and many of the existing software systems that many pawnbrokers are using today are actually still using architecture and databases that were built back in the 80s. And that's sort of what happens with a lot of system development. It's called legacy. Really hard to get away from legacy, because essentially, if you are committed to creating quality, essential, mission-critical type software, you have to start nearly from scratch in most cases, in order to make the leap to different technologies in order to take advantage of all those. So you'll hear the phrase of a lot of system developers and companies will talk about bolt-on. And bolt-on is taking new technologies and bolting it onto old technologies. The problem with that is new technologies have many more threads of content that require those new systems to operate the way that they were designed. And old legacy systems don't have those wires to plug in. So in the end, you get 80% of the new technology or 50% of the new technology. And although they say they're integrated, and they are, but not to the extent that they were designed.
Tally, anything you'd add in terms of just from your conversations, right, that you have with our customers, but other pawnbrokers in the industry in terms of a working definition of multi-store?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just in thinking of a multi-store being originally designed for a single store, and then as an operator, you can have multiple stores. And then there's this idea that it's easy then to connect those stores without having a framework for being able to do so. And so what that means for people that I talk to that are on other systems is that nothing is seamless. It's sort of like you're transferring inventory on a USB. That's super common. That's one of like the first questions that I get from multi-store operators that are looking at Bravo is like, well, do I need a USB to transfer inventory back and forth? Also, just the ability to share data amongst those stores, right? If you've got a customer in store A and that same customer goes to store C, is there data available at that store? No, usually you have to create a brand new customer and you have these multiple customer profiles for a single customer at all of your different locations. And at the end of the day, while that, you know, at one time was sort of standard practice and the way that things had to be done, as far as providing a really good customer experience, you want to have all of that built into your platform so that you can treat customer that goes into store A and store C the same, and you have the data to be able to do that. Other sort of limitations just as like consolidated company-wide reporting. Like obviously when you've got one store, your company-wide reporting is that single store. It's not so easy to do company reporting when you've got a bunch of single stores that are sort of operating independently without one centralized hub and database to be able to pull the data from. That also goes for like inventory and being able to look up inventory at other stores. And so when you're on a multi-store system, even though it's called a multi-store system and you have multiple stores, that's great. You're really limited in functionality and what you're able to do from a sort of central control perspective. So does that make sense, Kathleen?
Yes, yeah, I think between you and Steve, you've answered that question. However, for those of you who are listening, feel free to jump in, ask questions if you want Tally or Steve to expand on anything. And in the meantime, I think then why don't we talk by contrast what a platform is, what an enterprise level platform is.
So yeah, the fun thing of operating a single store is it functions as a single store. And when you think about developing software for a single store, it works. But when you think about the second store, the world completely changes. And in system development, if you're not thinking of more than one store and you only start with the single store operating system, the operational functionality is in the second store is just exponential. So when you're designing a platform and when you go from single store software development into platform development, you're thinking of 2 stores, 5 stores, 10 stores. And when our team decided to develop this enterprise, which was our 4th enterprise development, we thought global, we thought multi-store, we thought multiple currencies, multiple languages. We were going to build something that answered a lot of those questions. And when you think that way, you start really understanding that this operating system for each of the individual stores has to drive individual store performances that are powerful in its own respect, but that disseminates data and processing throughout the entire platform. And so it kind of goes back to that architecture image we saw where we're looking at a house, we're looking at a building, we're looking at a skyscraper. If you're building a software product for the single store, and later on you decide that, oh, I have customers that need it for more than one store and maybe 10 stores, that architecture has to be built in the very beginning. And so there's just a huge amount of investment that goes into designing the skyscraper. And then you start, if you think of that skyscraper, each one of those little apartments or little unique floors that have multiple offices are all like stores, pawn shops, that all have to function within that seamlessly integrated with data, with an expansive amount of data that can be used in the realm of now a 2, 3, 5 store, 10 store, 20 store operating environment. So this picture I'm showing you in the beginning, or the picture we're showing you right now, with the centerpiece being that you can't operate a platform, an enterprise, without an expansive computer system with the horsepower to be able to power all of these different functionalities and the changing environment. So when you build a platform, you're building it with the anticipation of changing technology. When you're building a single store or a multiple store, you're still confined into only thinking about the requirements of the single store. But when you're thinking of a platform, you're thinking, oh, we're going to build a point of sale. oh, this is going to have to satisfy the audit department, the corporate department, the marketing department, your accountants, or anything other than the needs of a single store operator, which are employees and salespeople and loan associates and the functions within the store. And of course, when you're thinking platform, you still have to provide all those things in the individual platform inside the store, but you have to have this encompassing ability, be able to see the entire picture of more than one store. So this gets really complex. And the reason why most software companies don't think about building these things in the beginning is because 80% of the investment goes into the architecture in the very beginning of the product. And a lot of people that build software need to get the product out really quick. And they start off with building bare essentials and then build on top of it. And then think about wanting to expand the usability for the additional audience of people that need to actually look into the store. So, you know, we're talking about building skyscrapers, and we're talking about a platform that accommodates thousands of stores, but Bravo's built this platform to be able to export to operators between the 10 and 20 store, 5, 10, and 20 stores, which means the store owner ultimately has the sphere of influence over all those stores, the same as when he was operating the single store. And that's what was so important to me, because I was a single store operator, and I recognized that I need span of control, operational control in all of my stores, the same as when I had operational control over my single store. And I need to be able to see it consistently, individually, down to the customer level, but be able to leverage the multiple store opportunity, which is creating efficiency, which is creating the use of the data and the employees going from one store to the next, for all these different things that you want to take advantage of when you have more than one store, that without the platform, without the enterprise, you can't harvest the power of having more than one store. You're just, in the multi-store bolt-on, you're just duplicating effort in every single store and not being able to leverage the reason why you're operating more than one store. And so this is the enablement. This is the picture that needs to be built. These are the stakeholders that are in the full circle that will be looking into your store as you grow into a bigger organization, that have to look into all of the stores through a single view, not looking into each individual store trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's something that I hear a lot when I'm talking to multi-store operators, especially, over the last 6 months, as there's been a little bit of extra bandwidth to add new products. And while pawnbrokers have now adopted new technology into their current software, which is fantastic because there's so much awesome technology now available for pawnbrokers to be able to drive business and reporting and awesome things. The operators are frustrated because they're spending a lot of time managing these different technologies because there's not a single place to do it. And so they're basically spending their day now managing more software, sort of taking away from the ability to coach employees and talk to customers. And they're now just sort of, they have all of these products which are working, but their entire day is spent basically maintaining them. And I actually think that just sort of jumping into the Bravo platform, and Steve, I'll let you jump into more of this, but we really develop for two people in mind. Obviously, the pawnbroker, our customers, we develop for to make sure that the experience for pawnbrokers is joyful. And my favorite thing that I hear from pawnbrokers is that Bravo makes being a pawnbroker fun again, which is like the ultimate compliment. But also we spend a ton of time developing for pawnbrokers customers and their experience. And it's more than just being a happy face smiling, you know, in the pawn shop. That's customer service, and things have really shifted to an overall experience throughout the store and making sure that everything feels connected and feels like the same brand that you're talking to in all of these channels. So those are, you know, as we continue to look at roadmap and as we continue to develop Bravo, those are the two audiences that we're constantly trying to make sure that we're developing for. Steve, do you want to touch on that anymore?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I was just like, I'm reminiscing here about what it was like operating the single store when I was growing, and when when you're like chatting with other pawnbrokers and you're comparing notes, you're saying, oh, I have a pawn shop, I've got 15 employees, and then I kind of look up, that's a lot of employees, and then we'd say, okay, so what kind of revenues do you do? How big is your loan base? All the kind of personal questions that we're kind of, you know, familiar with talking about in order to try to equate, like, what kind of operation does Bill run? What kind of operation does Joe run? What kind of operation do I run? And then as I've been involved in growing, you know, the company that we had to nearly 50 stores, and then now being a part of this software company and talking with pawnbrokers from all over the country, all over the world actually, and learning, and I'm often talking to them while they're operating on these really old systems, and I'm just scratching my head. I'm going, how many stores do you have? And they'll say, you know, I've got 5 stores, and I'll say, so how many employees do you have? And the number of employees that it's taking to operate those 5 stores with the size revenues and the size loan balance and the inventory, I'm going, holy mackerel, they must be like pulling their hair out. How are they like operating these stores with not having a system that's helping them function, to able to focus on? And here's the caption that was always like tantamount, was there's so much stuff going on in the store. When do you have time to take care of the customers? Because you're so busy doing regulatory work, running a report to get the expired loans, trying to get this report done. The accountants need this, all of the ongoing, like, kind of legacy, like systematic things that were built in these old legacy systems that you have to, in order to, drive a report to do your expirations. Is the first thing that we decided to do in the task manager in Bravo is say, hey, why run a report? We just want to like push a button and be able to price merchandise because it got expired. Because that's the call to action. Call to action before was run a report in the old system, go get those items, go price them. Well, we said, well, why run a report? Let's just queue it up and price them. And that was just kind of part of this essential thing that starts off with powering a system with multiple store like attitude and efficiencies into the platform, and it just kind of expands that way in terms of our thinking of figuring out, we want to make your stores as easy to operate and have the system do all of the systematic administrative effort so that pawnbrokers could take care of customers. Because how many of your store managers in the back room running reports? How many of your key personnel don't have time to be on the floor? The important things of looking at merchandise and talking to customers, developing relationships, like the core pawnbrokering that we all need to do, is being bogged down by too many things that you have to do with these legacy systems. So when we like talk about the future and all these new things that pawnbrokers have to do in their store, I'm scratching my head and saying, how can we figure this out without adding a single employee? We have to figure that out. We just can't bolt on a third-party project, not thinking about pawnbrokers' utilization of the number of employees that they have to have, because they just can't add 5 more employees. You can't do that. You can't sustain that. And that's the operating leverage. That's the span of control. That's the enterprise leverage that an enterprise operating system gives operators so that they can leverage the power of multiple store operations into something, a business and process, a system that's thought about these things. And so I don't know whether other software companies can even relate to this, other than just know that because I operated those stores and I was confronted with that challenge and I wanted to do more things for my customers. And I go, how am I going to find time? And that's just never gotten away from us. Whenever we develop any type of process, in order to make it faster, easier, and leveraged, in order so that you can do e-commerce, you can do mobile, you can do social media, you can do it all without adding the extra employee. That's what powerful systems are doing. That's what's happening to the world. That's the reason why technology now is the buzzword in everything, not just business, not just medicine, but in every single segment. And fortunately, for the pawnbrokers, we've been thinking this way for 10 years. And so that pawnbroker experience on that bottom row is the customer experience. We see them as one. We're the enabler. Our platform enables pawnbrokers to give the ultimate customer service with the minimum amount of employees in order for you to be able to deliver a high quality, a relevant experience with mobile, with commerce, with social media, to be able to text message customers on the fly and thank them for the transaction immediately, in order to foster communication through the system in an automated way, reminding them when their payments are due, automated, reminding them of their birthday, reminding them of their anniversary date, and then measuring our customers in like a really like powerful way with this deep database that we built with this global architecture we thought about, so that you know what your customers are all bringing to the table, so you can evaluate them and you can see, oh my God, I've got 1,249 customers, and this customer out of all of them is number 10. We know that. You recognize that. You tell the customer that, and then everyone should be celebrating the information that you have, the customer getting acknowledged that he's a great customer, and keeping that customer as long as possible. That's how we think about things. And we deliver all of these significant components. And what's cool about the platform, as a potential user of Bravo, you pick and choose which ones you think are the most important. You're not required to use them all. That's the platform. That's picking and choosing. That's customizing, being able to customize a pawn operating system for the things that you think are the most important. And then you train your people, you expand on it, you turn it off if you don't like it, you try something new. And we're putting out these features and these products every 6-8 weeks. They're things for you to try, because we all know, you know your business the best. When I was talking to those, made the example earlier about talking with the pawnbrokers, everyone's running their business different. And everyone's running it successfully. But with the best tools, giving it to your employees enables them to give the customer the best experience. Without these tools, it's impossible. And our employment base is young. We've got Gen Z, Gen X, and their expectations are much different than the majority of the 10 and 20-year pawnbrokers that got into this game back then. In my case, it was 50 years ago. And so it's certainly much different. I've watched the generational change, and the mobile application, the e-commerce is, it's just exploded. The adoption over the last COVID has gone up exponentially 10 times. Listen to the leaders of Microsoft and the software companies that are saying software adoption has accelerated 10 times. Well, guess what? We built all these things in anticipation for this. We knew this was going to happen. We didn't know it was going to happen this fast. But we have all the technologies available to you. So being able to centralize this into this mass data infrastructure that we've committed to and have built in Microsoft Azure powers through each one of your individual stores, so yet your customers can have essentially the same experience as the best of any retail or service finance company.
Steve, that's awesome. You're making me want to be a pawnbroker. And
I want to get back into it too.
It is. It's exciting. And I know I'd love to hear more on that. I wouldn't be doing my job as a moderator if I didn't move us along. So we're actually at time. But if people would be gracious enough, I think there's a couple other key things we'd love to address and also answer any questions. I've seen some coming through in the chat there. So Tally, I'll turn it over to you and we can run through the rest of the slides here.
Yeah, I'll fly through these ones. The advantages of a platform, not only have we been talking about it in this webinar, but we've been talking about it in every single webinar that we've done, and this is the 4th one with this series. But I think the 2 highlights here is flexibility in your system. And so Steve mentioned this a lot, in your ability to try new things in new environments. Are you able to test out a new product, a new service in a particular store? And the risk of doing so and the implementation risk is so much smaller when you're able to specifically target one market to be able to do that in. And so a platform enables you to do that. And that's the fun part. That's the creative part. That's where you're somebody that, is creative and likes to do marketing gets to say, hey, we're going to try this one campaign in this store. We're going to try this other one in another store. And then we're going to test the numbers. And so if you're a Bravo customer, you've got that ability to be able to try things and see what works best and really get competitive. This is, the next 6, 9, 12 months is all about, can you lend more than your competitors, and can you do so responsibly? And there's a lot of different products that we offer that enable you to do that. Also multi-state, there were a bunch of people in here that want to continue to open stores. Obviously Bravo allows multi-state and multi-regulation. If you're close to a lot of our stores that are close to Mexico, like to have 2 languages so their employees can view Bravo in Spanish or in English. That's really awesome. And just the ability to add, scale. So new locations, new workstations, new products, new features, adjust security. You want to be able to do that simply from a central command center. All of this is really important. And, like Steve was mentioning, the people that you hire that are hired to build technology, it's not the same person that you would hire to build a single family home versus a skyscraper. You wouldn't take a single family home builder and say, hey, you've built this 100-house development. I want you to go build a 100-story skyscraper using your blueprint from each of those single homes that you built. So that's the difference sort of in the engineering. I'm going to kick this over to Kathleen to talk a little bit about adaptation and how this is relevant specifically with enterprise platforms.
Yeah, I mean, some of these things, Tally, some of these are more almost like summary slides, right? Steve and Tally have really set me up well for this. But if we think about adaptation, it's the key to survival. It's the only way you're going to actually thrive. In a later slide, we actually talked about the fact that even amid COVID, we saw Bravo customers thriving, opening new locations at record numbers, spinning up new channels like e-commerce and mobile. So the question I would ask, particularly for those of you who are trying to evaluate if moving software platforms is the right move, is your software architected and built in a way that's functional and that allows you to adapt? Is it protecting you from new competitors who are coming in? Is it helping you keep pace with competitors? Is it protecting you from market downturns? And is it helping you actually seize new market opportunities and capitalize on new trends that are happening? If you don't know, or if the answer is no, or if that adaptation is extremely painful and you're constantly waiting for new updates, or having to go through a long process of implementation to re-platform, that may be a check mark there that says it may be time for me to seriously evaluate moving, because my software is not architected in a way that's actually allowing me to adapt. So I think adaptation is one word you should probably pull out of the presentation today. And we have just a couple of other questions on the next slide there, just things that you can ask yourself as you're thinking through, is now the right time? And probably, Tally, you can add on to this, but, is there an urgency behind, your need to switch? And there may be, depending on the position you're in, the platform you're using right now.
Yeah, so we'll send you this deck afterwards so you can use this as a framework for your list. So let's move on to talking about.
I just like one point on the adaptation. Just kind of clarifies that, the only thing that anyone that's not on Bravo, all you have to do is switch the platform. And what's so simple about that is that when you're on our platform and you want to move to mobile, we can implement that the same day. When you call and ask anyone else to say, hey, I want to install the your mobile feature, they're going to say, well, that's going to take a month or 6 months. So you can turn on mobile, call a customer support in Bravo, have one training session, and you've got mobile. All of a sudden, if you've never done e-commerce before, oh, I want to do e-commerce. I'm on Bravo. I think I want to sell on eBay. I'm going to call customer support, and within 24 minutes, 25 minutes, you're on eBay. If you want to maybe, I want to put all of my inventory on Google and sell through Buya. Call up customer support. Click the box. Immediately your inventory is on Google and millions of people are seeing the inventory. The implementation of trying anything once you're on our platform is like a miraculous opportunity to be able to essentially implement technological innovation in products. And so you can adapt quick and you can execute quick and you can, and all you have to do is switch to the platform. And all the new stuff that we're doing, we're launching this phenomenal third-party product with E4473. All you're gonna have to do is click the box, turn on digitized forms and never have to do a form again. It's overnight. And so adoption is one thing, but being able to implement it within a day and then execute, what you want to do is what's, I think, the real phenomenal opportunity in Bravo.
Yes, and I think this is what we were getting at here, right? There's some keywords. So adaptation, to Steve's point, even for those of you who may say, I know that I need to adapt, and Tally, maybe we can skip ahead to the agility and then we'll go back to integration. That's right what Steve's getting at, but are you agile, right? Agility allows you to move quickly, and those things that would normally take weeks, months, sometimes even years can now happen overnight or sometime in the matter of minutes. Being agile is incredibly important when it comes to competing in a really serious way. We know that there are hurdles, but when you're agile, you are able to overcome those hurdles and those things that are uncontrollable that sometimes are happening. But, what we'd posit is you cannot do that without a platform, and you cannot do that without an integrated platform, which is, what we've been talking about, instead of just bolting on all those third-party applications. And so we can, if you want, Tally, skip back to that idea of integrations. And Steve touched on this as well early on, where, I love looking at UPS. I recognize none of us are, companies that large, but when you look at Jack Levis, who's in charge of all of their data, right? And they started, because they had a centralized view into all of the data, they were able to as a company realize how much money, millions, $14.5 million a year they were losing simply because their drivers, if they were wasting 1 minute per day over the course of the year, adds up to 14.5 million, right? So they had insight into that data across the company, but were actually able to pinpoint it down to certain drivers, and then, right, have certain trainings and things like that. But ultimately, it was the same guy, the same truck, but they had way more deliveries happening. So again, I know we're not behemoths like UPS, but if you think about your operation, right? Same store locations, perhaps the same employees, maybe even the same inventory, but now increased cash flow, higher sales numbers, more productivity, increased efficiencies. When you have integrated systems, as Steve has mentioned, you're leveraging everything that's happening across your organizations. And that's really what efficiency is. It's not duplicating efforts over and over in your stores.
I did just want to touch on one question that was in the Q&A, and that is, can stores be set up within a single company, even if there's different ownership groups? And how can that be done? And so the way that works in Bravo is within your like enterprise company, you can actually have a lot of different stores, and we do have customers that have a lot of different sort of ownership groups throughout, you know, the different stores. And you can accommodate that in your accounting system, and you can do all of the same functions within Bravo. So you can turn it on to be able to transfer inventory back and forth. You can turn it on to be able to make payments at different stores. So if you're building a brand, or if you have like a, you know, different ownership groups amongst a bunch of different stores, and you want to be able to provide extra customer convenience, you're definitely able to do that in Bravo. So Tony, I'll circle around with you after that, but we do have customers that do that. I just wanted to touch on, you know, there's within the pawn industry, there's a record number of closures happening over the last 6 months, as in many other industries. The NPA is actually working on a really awesome survey right now, so if you haven't had a chance to fill that out yet, please do. But basically, they're trying to benchmark how many stores have closed over the last 6 months. What's really awesome, and I think this is like amazing, the best news for our customers, is that our stores have actually seen the opposite, where our current customers are opening new stores and acquiring existing stores at a greater rate than we ever have before. We've actually seen a 200% increase over the last 6 months. And that means that there's opportunity for Bravo customers to be able to acquire and bring those stores into your Bravo enterprise. Really simply, we handle the conversion, and we do all of that heavy lifting for you. And so if you're a current Bravo customer and you're thinking about adding stores, we've got people to put you in contact to talk through that with you. The success so far in talking to those stores who've added new stores has just been like awesome. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, and when I saw this this number, I was so ecstatic to know that this was happening in our company, and all of our competitors were seeing exactly the opposite. And I asked myself why, and over the course of the last 11 or 12 years of being in this business, and talking to multiple store operators, and I talk about span of control all the time, and unless you've never had it, you don't know what it is. But when people are on Bravo, they get it, and it's just a feeling of being in control. I mean, how do you get a feeling like in the pawn business of like, I have the same like control of 10 stores that I had with one? I mean, who feels that way? People that use Bravo. And when they get on it, and then they're on it for a year, and I'm going, Steve, now I understand what you're talking about. And not only is it like a feeling, it's a feeling because your financial statement is showing you something. It's the power that Kathleen was talking about, efficiency and leverage and all these things that we've thought about, all these incremental things, this minute, the task manager, minutes for every employee to be able to do more, rather than print a report and look at it, analyze it, figure out the next step. those are minutes all adding up to like efficiency, that your stores look better, they're operating better, they're consistent, your merchandise is priced right, you're lending better. Because we've thought about those things. It's the estimator, it's the evaluator, it's all the stuff that no one has that we've leveraged into the enterprise that they're getting the power. So that's the why. That's the why they're doing so good. It's the span of control. It's the financial statements showing that they're doing great and they're expanding. And they're making money and profits and leveraging and getting better with every single store. They're not weakening. And this is just anecdotal, factual evidence that supports that thesis.
Yeah, I think that that's a good place to sort of end things for today. So if you've got additional questions, go ahead and post them in the chat or in the Q&A. I've been trying to answer those as we've been going. And before we end, we like to ask you how we did today. So please answer that poll before you sign off today, whether you learned something or whether you feel like this is a waste of time. It's all helpful for us in the way that we format these and in the surveys that we ask in the beginning to make sure that we're addressing and answering some of the questions that you have and the reason why you're spending 30 to 45 minutes with us. So take the poll, ask us questions. We'll stick around for a few minutes, but with that, we will say thank you and have a great rest of your day.